Rise and shine, everybody. Wake up, especially me, because I was the one that was sleeping. Luds never sleeps. He's a vampire. But Craig Ludwig, I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks for joining us for this emergency pod of the DLLS Sports broadcasts. And we're here. We have a bunch of different Olympic topics, but we are mainly here because Team USA made its announcement this morning. Uh, I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time getting into the way in which the Today Show decided to show basically a camera of another TV scroll of headshots, hard to see, because that was a little tricky. But beside that fact, Jason Robertson was not selected, as many people were reporting, and they were right. Robo not on the Team USA roster for the Olympics. Jake Oettinger made it, and I think we should celebrate that. We also expected it. But let's start with the Robertson news, Luds, because that's the big news. We all saw this coming, and look, we've had Bill Guerin on our show. I wonder if there's been sort of a bit of a campaign, as they kind of made the decision a while ago. And my thinking is they knew what the team they wanted. He was not part of their plans, and they've been floating these thoughts. Why is this? Oh, Jason Robertson might not make the team. Why has it been out there for? It feels like at least a month, and I feel like this has been a soft landing. But besides the PR campaign of it, why do you think Jason Robertson didn't make the Olympic roster for the United States?
I think I could probably have a bigger list of why he should than why he shouldn't. The only thing that can fathom or does have any kind of relevance is maybe the way that he plays the game from the standpoint of a physicality standpoint. And we've seen Robo, though, when he wants to, he's not going to run people over, and no opponent is afraid of Robo running him over, but he can add some physicality to his game. Is it, like a Bishop? No. But I just wonder, is he one-dimensional for him? Is he just a goal scorer? Is he a guy that doesn't have a ton of speed compared to some of these other players? So are they looking, because I go down the list and I'm, I don't see any bangers on here. You wonder what kind of game and team that they want to play. I think we all know. I mean, when you look at what they have in Eichel and guys like Hughes and Keller, there's Tage Thompson we've seen recently. There's some skill there. There's no question there's skill there. So when you play against Team Canada, I think we know the identity of Team Canada. I mean, yes, they're going to have some skilled guys, but they play the game greasy. They play with an edge, and they're going to want to push you out of the fight. And is that really is that a knock against Robo? But I don't know. I think there's times this year more so than other years that when Robo is pushed, he's pushed back. So, but from the standpoint of wanting to put the puck in the net over the last few months, I don't know how many people have been better than Jason Robertson.
Well, and it's not just the last few months, right? It's the last few years, because if you go back to basically the start of his NHL career, right? Robertson was on the taxi squad at the Olympic or the Edmonton bubble COVID. But let's start 2021, the shortened season. If you just look at who has the most points and goals for American players, Jason Robertson is all over that list. This is a 5-year span. So it's not as though it's just, he's been hot for 25 games this year. He's been hot for 5 years. And Luds, and when you just look at the NHL stats for the regular season for American-born players since 2020 through today, or through the start of today, Austin Matthews has the most points, 473 points. Jason Robertson is second with 441. Think about that. Most points, and then as far as goal scoring, Matthews is by far the number one. I know he hasn't had a great season, although he had a big game last night for Toronto, but he has 261 goals. Kyle Connor, 197. Jason Robertson, 192. I was having a conversation with Sean yesterday, and he wrote a great piece about it as well. I don't know if it was for our All DLS website or for his Substack, but Brett Hull was a huge factor, not just on the 99 Stars Stanley Cup winning team, but also on the 95, or was it 95, 96 World Cup of Hockey winning U.S. rosters. The last time the U.S. won gold in a best on best international competition, right? Brett Hull wasn't exactly known, Luds, for being a defensive heavy checking forward, was he?
No, but he has a history of being USA.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of that plays into that, because I don't think Austin Matthews has had his best season either.
No, I
But
don't think
there's
so.
a history there of USA basically tattooed on these guys. Now, see, I don't think you. Yes, guys are proven scorers, but I don't. This is more about what you're doing for me right now. How are you playing right now? And he checks that box, doesn't he? I mean, Robo checks that box. Did he have the season to start with? No, but then all of a sudden he got hot. So are they concerned about this is a player that's a hot and cold guy, and he's been more hot than he's been cold, and can he turn it on at the right time? Because it's a short tournament. I mean, for all
right
when you think about it. So I'm not sure, but I do think that the pushback and I'm talking about the style of play, because of and we asked both these guys, Doug Armstrong and Billy, and they're like, no, we put our team together. I don't know about that. I think they want to beat each other. How do we beat the Canadian guys? We know.
I think so.
We know the American guys. Can we push some? Because I'm thinking again, when I look at this, can you push some of these guys out of the fight for Team USA versus Team Canada? Yeah, but then there's the other side of the coin. When Sam Bennett is left off of that page, there's a guy that can get under your skin, right? We've seen that, and he is such an important player to the Florida Panthers, and he gets players on tilt, and so, but they left him off now too. So, but they have some other. I mean, they both the Kachucks are. But my thing is, when I look at a lot of this stuff, they have to have their fingers crossed that these guys are going to be ready to go. Some of these guys haven't played any games. I mean, Jack Eichel, one of the key pieces, is still out of the lineup. So Charlie McAvoy at the back end, Slavin, so you go down the list and you got to be hoping, and I'm sure, they got a month and a half to go, and I'm sure their doctors and everybody else in the teams have said, yeah, they're going to be ready to go, but are they going to be in the playing shape standpoint when we talk about that all the time?
The other thing is when you look at the guys that played the Four Nations, and understand the Four Nations tournament is not going to be the same as the Olympics, right? The surface is actually going to be smaller, which is weird because it wasn't supposed to be that way. And then but the way that the game is going to be officiated will be different. And there'll be obviously a lot more teams. There are 12 teams instead of 4. So when you do all of this, you're looking at it going, okay, we saw how this team played, and they were an overtime goal away from winning it, right? And so then you'd say, well, geez, you roll out the exact same group because you won it. Canada did not do that. They actually made a few alterations, including one of adding Macklin Celebrini. I know that doesn't seem like a really hard decision because Celebrini is really good, but he's a young player, and it kept Sam Bennett off the team. They also went and added Tom Wilson, and he's going to get a chance to play for the Canadians, which I know he's very excited watching him play right after that. And so I guess to me, Luds, the question of the guys that they stuck with that didn't play well, I'm not saying they're bad players. In fact, I want to preface this by saying everybody they picked for Team USA is an excellent hockey player, right? This is not this guy's a bum and has no business being on this roster. It's, boy, I don't think he's as good as one of the top scoring American players over the last 5 NHL seasons. So when you look at Kyle Connor, he didn't have a good Four Nations last year. He also didn't play because they tried to address an injured Matthew Tkachuk who couldn't go. And that was a confusing thing. Now, this is the TSN lineup I saw. Don't make much of this because I don't think these are line combinations. This is somebody's guesses. Like Vincent Trocheck isn't playing fourth line right wing ahead of Connor or Brock Nelson. So whatever this is, and by the way, Jacob Slavin, unless he's injured, is not the number 4 left-sided player for the U.S. defense. So don't look into these as any kind of combos. It's just an interesting graphic. But Luds, Connor didn't play well. Jack Hughes is an excellent hockey player. He didn't play well. On the flip side, I thought Dylan Larkin played exceptionally well and deserved it. JT Miller, although he had that nice fight against the Canadians in the group stage, I don't think he was actually that great. Do they deserve to be there over Jason Robertson?
Again, I think you're looking at what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
And I guess what you're doing is you're assuming that, or Billy Guerin and his crew are assuming that these guys are going to be as close to 100% ready to play when they get there. And if they are, and when they are, what they bring to that team in those particular moments, especially against Canada, and and again, I'm guessing Sweden, Finland, that is, those are elements that we believe can push some of the opponents out of the fight. And maybe Jason Robertson, they feel, doesn't have that element. He's got a different element. I mean, you still have to score goals in order to win an Olympic medal. But it's the only reason that I mean, I don't think I'm the only one saying this. I mean, we know Robo can be hot and cold, but when you got a hot Robo, man, you don't want to leave him off that team, and that's what he's been for a big portion of this year. And when he starts putting pucks in the net, they continue to go in the net. So again, I think that you would, if Billy Guerin, Doug Armstrong, any of these guys would be sitting here, they're going, guys, we have tough choices to make, and here's what we feel is the best. We've scouted these guys. We have a staff. It's not just Bill Guerin out there looking at these players every day. They have so many people on these staffs that are going around the country, countries watching these guys play, for going back to last year, and or maybe even longer. I'm not sure how long and when the process starts, but for sure this year. So, and like I said, this isn't up to one or two guys, and so they've got a big room of people that are going. And is he on your list? Yes. Everybody, he's on 6 of our lists. 6 guys, that's the list he's on. And I guess Robo wasn't on as many lists, and so that's what they're going to go at.
Remember, obviously, we all saw the movie Miracle, and it's a fictional portrayal of real events. So I don't know if you should take Miracle as verbatim. It's a great movie. In fact, it's Jake Ottinger's favorite movie, and he will gladly admit that. One of the things they showed in that movie was Herb Brooks saying, I have my list, I have my team. And he poo-pooed basically an entire room of USA Hockey executives who wanted to go through a whole bunch of different guys. And no. I've picked my guys.
Hey, so, I lived it. I was there. I was
right.
I was at the tryouts in Minneapolis, and I was the first, maybe not the first, but the second guy. I didn't deserve to be on that team. But when I was there and I was watching guys, and we were there, I was there for 3 days. It was my 18th birthday weekend, by the way. So I was not there my mind was not set on making that team, because I knew I wasn't going to make it anyway. But there were players that I was going, really? Like, I remember the scrimmages. I remember the practices. Really? That guy's making it? You know what? They made the right choice, obviously. Herb knew what he wanted. He said he knew what he wanted, and he got what he wanted. Then they all got what they wanted. So I just think that it's up to the staff. It's up to what they believe in. Billy Guerin, we know Billy Guerin as a player. There's an edge to Billy Guerin. So when and that's why. But there's people there that are saying, hey, Billy, you have to be able to score goals in this too. So I just think that what they're looking at is a healthy combination of both, and this is what's given us the best chance.
Well, my point on that, Luds, is just simply that the line in the movie is, Herb, I hope you know what you're doing, right? And so I'm genuinely disappointed for Jason Robertson.
There's only going to be one group that knows what they're doing.
The one that wins the gold medal.
That's it.
I hope. And look, I'm still supporting Team USA, so I hope they know what they're doing, but I think they're making a mistake. And it's not, to me, I said this on our show the other day, Jason Robertson shouldn't be number 13, 14, or 15, either barely in or barely out. Jason Robertson should be on one of their top 2 scoring lines. And if they're worried about defense or penalty killing, I mean, not defense, but if they're worried about a checking role on a 3rd or 4th line or PK stuff, it shouldn't be because our penalty kills hurt because we brought Jason Robertson. He should be one of the guys playing on the top 2 lines to be a legitimate weapon to hurt opponents in the Olympics offensively. That's, I think, why we're all upset. It's not he maybe got in or he just missed it by a hair. Now, here's the question, Lutz. There are going to be injuries. There are guys that are on that roster, you said it, that aren't even healthy right now. Does Jason Robertson get picked if they need an injured alternate player? Or is this, we don't think he's part of the group, the personality core of this group, and he's not our guy?
Well, there's no way that their scouting portion of this is over. I mean, because they know that. I mean, there's question marks here right now. Is this guy going to come back healthy? Is he going to be up to speed? And is there going to be a setback? So, I mean, if I'm part of that staff, I would say we don't know if every one of these guys is going to be there. I mean, there's games to be played. There's somebody's going to get hurt. I mean, I think that there's a chance that somebody here is going to get hurt, and you don't wish that on anybody. But so they have to continue to watch. And I think what you have to do is you have to watch Jason Robertson body language as he plays this. We saw 2 nights ago, and there was a guy, we talked about this. Robo was kind of disinterested. And now last night to me there was a different mentality from the game before. And I thought, I guess they've heard, they know. And we talked about that. And I said, well, I think we're going to be able to tell. Even Thomas Harley had a different jump in his game the morning of that game when it was announced. He was a little bit different player. Robo was the other way. Now, maybe that was just that game. Maybe it was the opponent, whatever it may be. But I just think you're going to monitor that. And if Robo wants to go, if he's going to take the mentality, which would be great for the Dallas Stars, I'm going to prove you wrong. Here, that's what Robo has to do right now, and let them go ahead and go, well, listen, maybe this is by design. Maybe they know one of these players isn't going to be there that's injured right now, that's on the list, that's up maybe 40% in, 60 out, or maybe the other way, 60, 40, 70, 30.
What about that, Luds? What if it's I hate to try to deal in hockey conspiracies or the hidden agenda of political stuff, but we know it exists. Mike Sullivan, the head coach of the New York Rangers, is the coach for Team USA. He has guys on that roster that are American. Now, he didn't pick Adam Fox, but he also brought JT Miller. What if Miller isn't going to be able to go, but it's easier for Mike Sullivan for him to get picked so that he doesn't have to? I know there's a whole bunch of layers to that, and it might sound like you're wearing an aluminum foil hat in your garage, but those things do happen from time to time, right? It's not a zero-sum game there.
Yeah, it's the same with John Cooper. I mean, Cirelli's coming along with them, right? I mean, but he knows how important. I don't think either one of these coaches, they know that they need to win, or not need. They want to win that gold medal, right? And so they're doing what's best for the country. It's not an organization anymore. It's a country. So I just think that it's not over yet, and you're going to continue to look at some players that you really wanted to take, you couldn't take it over this player for whatever reason it may be. And I think for Robo, because that's what we're more concerned with, is he has to right now, starting with the very next Dallas Stars game on Sunday afternoon, he has to prove that they made a mistake. And so, and there'll be somebody there watching. They're going to see, how does Jason Robertson play? How did he play last night, and how did he play the night before?
Well, how do you think he played against the Blackhawks last night versus when the rosters were announced on New Year's Eve against Buffalo?
You could see for the lack of a better way to say it, the give a shit meter was a little bit higher last week than it was the day before and the game before.
He looked like he was trying to prove a point last night.
He was trying to say you made a mistake. You should have taken it. Well, that's maybe it wouldn't have mattered. It was the game before because they had already made their choices by then.
Right.
So, but maybe it took Robo 48 hours to go, man, this isn't over yet. I still can prove that. And maybe there was a phone call that was made. Robo, you're not completely out of this yet. Well, we don't know anything that's gone behind the scenes. So I just,
and like you said, Lutz, not only guys that are currently dealing with injury for the roster, there's a lot of hockey between now and mid-February, and I'm not wishing injury on anybody, but guys will get hurt on all of these rosters.
Yeah, that has to be what you lead with if you're the general manager or who's ever making those phone calls to the guys that aren't going to be on the team. Like, listen, we've got a tough job to do, and when we're trying to put this together and this and that, I don't know how you sell it. I'm not sure what the right way would be to sell, especially to a guy like Robo, having done everything that you've said. In his past, but I looked at when you mentioned Celebrini, I think that there's no question he should be there.
I agree.
I look at that decision going, he's going to be part of this Olympic event for the next 4 Olympics or whatever. We're getting him in the fold now. I think you can do that with the Olympics, and you start having these kids where they're going to go home, or they already have just come back from the tattoo parlor and they've got the Canadian flag here and the American flag or whatever they may be. because you look at that could be a foundation. I have one too, but it's not really here. And it's not a USA flag. So, but I think that has to be part, because you're not just always doing this just for this Olympics. You want to be able to set the tone, and you want some of these players in the
Well, case in point, where we're looking at the Swedish roster right before we went on, and Matthias Ekholm, who's been very good for both Nashville for a long time, and now more recently the Edmonton Oilers, was left off of the Swedish defensive roster, and they brought Philip Broberg. Now, in the last 24 months, you might argue that Ekholm has been the steadier, better player, but Broberg is part of the future, and that makes sense. Sometimes you do that. You lean toward a younger guy, right? That will then be, you said mix him into the fold early, and then and Robo has not been part of that Team USA fold, whether it's because of when he played the late bloomer stuff, or also can't go to the World Championships, right? Tage Thompson and Clayton Keller played well for the World Championships because their teams didn't make the playoffs, and Jason Robertson was still playing in the Western Conference Final. And that's just circumstance, right? But you don't sometimes get an opportunity to learn the international coaching system, right? Whether it's Hockey Canada, Team USA, the Finns, being part of that USA hockey family can help, because then they learn you. They see what you can do. They see you with the coaches and the other players and go, oh, okay, he does fit, or we do like him more, because they don't have as much of that relationship. Now, they know he's a great player. They do. But he hasn't been part of the group, and those guys like to stick with their core.
And I think personalities matter. Like there's characteristics that these guys are looking. It's no different than your NHL teams. There's characteristics there's a reason they have the interview process when they're drafting players. They learn things about the players when they get to talk to them one-on-one. You hear all the great things that are said, and he's this and he's that, or you hear some of the negative things that he said.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of go into that meeting thinking, okay, well, we understand he's this kind of a player off the ice, or he's not this in the locker room, or on the ice. When the game gets tilted a little bit one way or the other, he kind of checks out. And then you do the interview with him, and you're like, I don't believe that. I believe this. I believe he is that. And so that's what I mean, is they know the personalities of the players pretty much inside and out, going back to the days that they were drafted. And when you talk about checking boxes, you're like, yeah, he's kind of lived up to that. So has Jason Robertson been? It's hard to say, Jason. Can you imagine if he wasn't called a so-called streaky scorer? Because where would he be, right? So
yeah.
But again, if that's what their thought is, or if their thought is that he can be pushed out of a hockey game against Team Canada, if we're going to play Team Canada in the gold medal game, and they have this type of a roster and we have this type of a roster, is he going to be eliminated from or not eliminated, not be as effective in that game as we need him to be, like he was in the first three games?
Yeah.
In the biggest game that we consider at this moment, we can't have that. And I'm not saying that that's what they're worried about, but that's kind of been the knock on Robo at times. He goes over here. Not everybody can play the same way all the time, So like I said, it's a short event. They want the players for 2 weeks that they know what they're getting every single game.
Luds, I played the clip of Chicago Blackhawks head coach Jeff Blashill talking about Connor Bedard not making Hockey Canada's lineup last night on our pregame show for a couple reasons. One, because I thought it was an interesting answer, but two, it gives the same tones as we thought Jason Robertson was. We thought this was going to happen based on some recent reporting, and apparently very accurate reporting. So kudos to Michael Russo up in Minnesota, who is, of course, covering Bill Guerin in the Minnesota Wild every single day. But here's the thing that I have. I wanted to put a correlation with what the Bedard Blashill comments were, which are he suspected or even accused people of selecting or not selecting players based on the player they were, not the player they have become, right? And the example of Connor Bedard was, as he first came into the league, extremely talented, generationally rated, pushed around against a bigger men's game versus playing in junior hockey, which is normal for a teenager. I know he's injured right now, but the the progression that Bedard has made, and Blashill made that case, is he's very different now than he was even a year ago. I think we've seen something different from Jason Robertson. I think that the impression, now look, they've been scouting him this year. So it's not like they just looked at Jason Robertson's past, but I do think people make judgments. They make, early impressions based on what they've seen in the past. I'm just sitting there going, look, okay, fine, we'll learn to deal with this, but I'm baffled because the goal, and I've said this before, the objective of game of hockey is to score at least one more goal than your opponent to win the game. I know that's really dumbing it down, but you have to score at least one and hold the other team to zero to win. Jason Robertson is one of the best in the world at scoring goals, right? There's a lot of incredible players that are fast, that are able to create scoring chances. They can get to the net and don't have that natural instinct to finish. It's hard for me to chew on, to swallow, to whatever, to digest the fact that you have a guy that is that good at scoring goals and he's not on your roster.
I just saw what came across the bottom of the screen there.
Yep.
From Robert 6, I think it said, and said it was something about, and Ryan, you can pull it up again, but it said something about a slow start to the season. Has there been pockets in Robo's since he's been a Dallas Star? Because that's all I personally really know. There's been pockets of that. And it could be small pockets or bigger pockets where there is nothing that happens for 4, 5, 6 games, right? And then all of a sudden he's on fire.
Yes.
Is that what you're worried about, though? Is that
maybe
is that pocket going to come when you're in the middle of February? And are there players on this list that when those pockets come, you see them, or when that game comes or that second game comes, they make sure there is no third game? They do something to get themselves out of that, and it's not score a goal. It's to up the meter a little bit. And I'm just saying, are they concerned that we can't have on this list? We can't have anybody that's going to go cold for more than one game. We can't have it. And
I mean, they have 2 extra forwards, right? So
yeah.
if a guy does go cold, you do have others. So it's not like, hey, you got to pick 12, and if they're there, you're playing. But yeah, okay, yeah, that's fair, right? That is a concern. But all scorers get streaky, right? Even Austin Matthews, we talked about it. His resume is
Austin
immaculate.
Matthews has added things to his game. He's a little bit harder to play. Now he's got a coach there that demands that stuff. But he's talked about how he back checks and how he takes people off the puck. And so that he's getting those praises. And that's not just Olympic praises. It's going back a year or so that he's changed his game a little bit. And he's getting more. He's not one-dimensional. I guess that's probably the best way. Because everybody thought about Austin Matthews being that guy with a great shot, 50, 60 goals a game.
But I think Austin Matthews gets picked for the Olympic roster, even if he doesn't add those things to his game, because the early judgment was, wow, he joined the league and was an immediate offensive threat. Robo had to sort of not ease in, but he took his time becoming, as far as being an elite scorer for the outside the Dallas Stars orbit kind of impression, right? Matthews was the 1-1. Robo was an early second-round pick. So I just think that people had to come to realize how good he is offensively, whereas the first impression, that's the word I've been searching for that for like 5 minutes. The first impression for Matthews was so high, so exponentially higher than Jason Robertson. Robo had to change people's minds, whereas Matthews, everyone said well, we've been told he's one of the best. And look, I'm not sitting here arguing that Austin Matthews shouldn't be on this roster. He should. And it sounds like he might even be the captain of this one. We'll see. I'm saying that there are other guys that shouldn't be on there, and they're amazing hockey players. So I guess the last thing I want to say about Robo, and we could do this for hours, but we'll maybe touch on Oettinger and the Finns real quick. Where we've mentioned what this could do to Jason Robertson. We also mentioned that he could still very much be part of this, second wave if the guys are injured. How do you want Jason Robertson to handle and react and move on from this?
Well, I think that'll be obvious on Sunday afternoon. I really do. I think we saw it last night, and I think he was disappointed 2 games ago. Yesterday, to me, and I've been watching him since you started talking about this, and so I felt that, well, if these decisions were made today, or they found out today, meaning a couple games ago, I'm going to see how he plays the game, and it was kind of what I thought it was going to look like. But then, what made me happy was to see that he played differently last night, and I'm not talking about with the puck. I'm talking about the fight to do different things and to get to certain areas, and the second and third effort to get pucks back. That if you do that consistently, that becomes part of your trademark. So I want to see Robo play like he still has an opportunity to be on this team, not just Sunday, but game after game after game. Because again, like I said, there's guys on this roster right now that are they 100% that they're going to be there? What was the conversation?
No.
What was the exit conversation with Jason Robertson? What was that phone call like? Whether I don't know if they're in person or not, but what was that like, and how did you leave it? Are you the next guy up? Like, if anybody goes down, I don't care if it's a centerman or not, which I don't believe that, but is that how it goes? Robo.
Hey, Lud, should he be?
I don't know who the others are. I don't know who that other list is.
Some of the big, I don't want to call them snubs, that were left off were Cole Caulfield of Montreal, who's a great young player, Alex DeBrincat, who's been having a fabulous year, and also one of those guys that's been a consistent producer in the NHL. I'm thinking about a couple of D-men like Lane Hudson and Jackson Lacombe, young guys that clearly are the next wave. But those are the ones that stand out to me. Of course, Chris Kreider, maybe got aged out a little bit, but he didn't get picked. And how about Matthew Nyes in Toronto?
See, I like Nyes. I do. Now, thinking of Caulfield, the kid's got a motor on him, right? When I think of Caulfield, and you were talking about Bedard earlier, Bedard is now playing like Caulfield all over the ice, where maybe Bedard was what they said he was.
Right.
I think there's a different motor on Bedard right now. I'm surprised that he's not on the list. And the injury, who knows how severe the injury is? Was he going to be able to play anyways? I don't know. So I just think that of that list, Robo's at the top of it for me, because, but again, it depends on the player that goes out. Which player? What style of player?
What role do they need? Yes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you lose one of your depth center, quote unquote, grinders, I don't know if there's any true grinders on it. Maybe that's not the guy. But like I said before, I think he should be playing in your top 6 role right now, because look, I personally, I like that the GM and the coach is giving players that didn't play well at the Four Nations a second chance, but they better be right, because this is a huge decision going for the Olympics for the first time since 2014 with full NHL players. All right, let's quickly here, because we could do this all day. Let's celebrate Jake Oettinger making Team USA. Look, this is not a surprise. We knew it, but still, this was a goal from Jake's for a very long time, to be on Team USA at Olympic Games, and he's going to do that. Now the question is, Hellebuyck, Oettinger, Swayman, who starts? Is it a question?
You know what? I think it's a tough question. I think it's a tough ask right now. I do. I think that if Hellebuyck wasn't injured to start the year and go off as many games as he did, I think it would have been his job to lose. I believe that. Now that Hellebuyck has come back, he hasn't been great. He's been good. I haven't watched every single game that he's played, but recency bias, what happened last night. So, but then again, like we've seen with Jake, has Jake been the more consistent of the two? I think yes. I think I would give Jake the first start for game 1. I would give Jake Oettinger the first game. And there's reasons for that for me. And I think I said it to you guys last night. And it was because that will piss Hellebuyck off. Because I believe that Hellebuyck believes, and everybody else does too, that this is it's his to lose. But I think that upsets him in game 1. So what it does, it gives Jake Oettinger an opportunity to shine. Whoever I don't care who it's against. I don't care about the opponent. But Jake does what Jake can do. Hellebuyck comes back in game 2, and let's find out what he is. I'm saying if you're part of the staff, and now you see Hellebuyck go, oh no, you're not taking my job, or he's iffy. Well, then that means that Jake gets the 3rd game, and then maybe that's who rides it out from there. Because I think if Hellebuyck starts and Hellebuyck is good in that 1st game and does what the 2-time Vezina and all the other awards that he's won then I think you're going to lean to him as you get down into the later games.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see, because maybe you could argue that at the moment is Swayman the one that's playing the best hockey. I honestly think he's the 3rd choice right now. I think Hellebuyck and Oettinger have probably a slight edge above him. I'm not saying he's not a phenomenal goalie. I just think that that's the tier or the hierarchy. So it'll be interesting to see. By the way, Finland, no surprise that Rope Hintz has been selected to join the 3 other Dallas Stars Finns who are already on the Finnish roster, the sort of the preliminary. So Mikko Rantanen, Miro Heiskanen, Esa Lindell, and now Rope Hintz also join that Finnish roster. Also fun to see that former Dallas Stars Mikael Granlund and our buddy JFK, Yoel bleeping Kiviranta, has been selected. What a great moment for Kivi, because you want to talk about a kid that just plays above his size, grinds it out. And I know Jere Lehtinen, Luds, your old teammate, was a big proponent of a big reason why Kivi made it to the Dallas Stars in the first place, and now, moved on from them, of course. But that's awesome to have him in that role. Don't look at this group, because Mikko Rantanen is not playing on the 4th line for Finland, but maybe that's just a weird thing. But honestly, no surprises there. We expected the 4 Finns. And as we said on the post-game show last night, they're going to use Rantanen, Hintz, but especially Heiskanen and Lindell an awful lot in the Olympics.
Yeah, good for them. I don't like it because we're here for the Dallas Stars. We want them to get a little bit of a break, and I think the good news is typically it's not as a physical game in the Olympics. But again, rink size now and the way teams are developing and putting their teams together, so maybe there will be a little bit more physicality, especially because it's not on that big ice.
And then lastly, Czechia, January 6th, so 4 days from now, the Czechs are going to announce their roster. Radek Faksa should be on that team, but we found out through Sean, and then I talked to Radek, what's today? Friday, so Wednesday morning. He still didn't know, or at least he told us he didn't know. So we'll see. But when he said he legitimately hadn't been called when he was in Detroit on the 23rd, right before the Christmas break, that was surprising, because frankly, Luds, the Czechs don't have that many excess NHL forwards. He's probably on that group.
He would be a good mentor for some of those guys. But I do think in the role that he's played here in Dallas, he's been exceptional in the role that he's been asked to play in. And he's stepped up, and I don't think he was I was surprised in the beginning where he wasn't a penalty killer. Now he's into that. It's kind of where he should be, a penalty killer, 4th line guy, strong on faceoffs. The small intangible things that he does every single shift. He's someone that you want some of your players that are the next Radek Faksas to kind of learn from. And you talk about Kivi. Is Kiviranta a little bit like Ritzy Ritz here? I don't know.
Yeah.
When you said Kiviranta, I immediately think of Ritskovian for some reason. Just the way that they play.
They have a similar game. I agree.
They're a little dog on the bone, that keeps on nipping at your heel. They don't quit on you. They don't quit on plays. But good for him to be there. And you're right. Like Yuri, let's knows the things that he's looking for. He understands that at sometimes, you probably don't have as many bullets or big bullets as USA and Canada does. But if you're going to compete, here's how you're going to be able to play, and here's how you're going to be able to frustrate. I think that's the best way I can say it is you can frustrate some of these top players when you play a certain style. And when you do that, and you want to get under their skin, and not necessarily from sticking guys, but just being that gnat around the fire. He won't go away. I can't get where I want to go, and that's kind of the way that Jere Lehtinen played the game. And all the Selkies that he won. It's because there was no quit in him. So he's got certain characteristics that he'll look for, and he'll find as many guys as that. And I think they're going to have a team that's going to bother some teams.
Yeah, I actually expect Finland to be better than they were at the Four Nations. And I think Sweden is going to be even more determined because I know the two countries from the Nordic area, we can't call them Scandinavia because technically Finland doesn't identify with Scandinavia like Norway and Denmark. But I think both the Finns and the Swedes, Luds, weren't happy with not just the results, but how they were fine, but they kind of felt like they were second fiddle to the US and Canada in that tournament. And we all know how important the Olympics are, especially to the European countries. I was talking to Oscar Beck on Wednesday, and he said that it's starting to get a little bit more leaning toward NHL. He goes, but most young Swedish hockey players dream about playing for the international Swedish side first. But now a lot of them are dreaming about NHL. But look, all these guys growing up trying to win gold for Sweden or Finland or whatever, that's number one for them. So this is going to be a big deal, especially being played in Italy on European soil. But it doesn't matter where it is, right? The Olympics are a huge deal globally, and this will be a massive event. And of all these debates, I'm just glad everybody's going and playing full NHL rosters because we can talk about why owners hate it, why GMs don't like it. Guess what? The players want it and the fans want it. And that is good for the game of hockey, regardless of how people might be upset about the injury risk and the condensed schedule and how it affects an NHL season.
Yeah, the biggest thing is we want them all to come back healthy, especially the ones wearing the green and black. I mean, and now I do believe with the rink size not being that Olympic size sheet of ice, there could be a few more injuries. Yeah, just because it's more NHL.
Time and space.
Contact is right next to you now versus a little more space to get away from it.
Well, Luds, we did about 45 minutes of an emergency pod, and I feel like we could have done twice as long. But we have a show on Sunday. Stars are playing the Montreal Canadiens, so a 12:15 pregame show, 1 o'clock Central Time game. And then we have an actual daily pod on Monday. I have a feeling that we'll probably talk a little bit more Olympic rosters then. So we'll get our little buddy Sam and maybe Sean to get off whatever golf course they're at right now and see if we can get their opinions. But thanks very much for the time this morning. Thanks for joining us. He's Craig Ludwig. Actually, he's over there. I'm Owen Newkirk, and our producer, Ryan Botters. Have a great Friday, and try not to be too mad at Billy Garrett. He wants the U.S. to win the gold.